Streethearts right here on 98 Cool, playing the coolest music.
In early 2014, radio station Magic 98 changed its name to 98 Cool. And not once in the 4 years since has the name seemed less appropriate.
I am standing by.
I'm melting by.
Yeah.
On-air hosts Hudson from 98 Cool and Pat Dubois from The Bull broadcasted from one of the least comfortable spots imaginable. Along with Alexa Joy from Early's Farm and Garden, they stationed themselves inside a truck in the Early's parking lot to demonstrate just how warm it can get inside a vehicle in the summer.
It is really, it's bad in here. 42 degrees right now, and we've only been in here 10 minutes. Pat, you doing all right, though?
I'm doing okay for now, but I can tell this is going to get progressively worse.
The broadcasts were done in partnership with the Saskatoon SPCA to highlight the effects these conditions can have on animals. But the volunteers also discovered some less than appealing facts about how humans are impacted.
Ew.
That's so gross.
That is awful.
Ew.
It's all about the ankles. I had no idea that one's ankles could actually sweat, and then behind the ears was a bad one too. It's just uncomfortable to the next level.
Yeah.
And while these conditions were nearly unbearable for these humans, they can have a much more serious effect on dogs.
Humans sweat to cool ourselves off, but dogs don't have that ability. Rather, dogs will pant to cool their bodies down. Now, the idea of panting is that they're bringing cool air into their bodies and circulating it through their lungs. But if they're inside a hot car, the air around them is even warmer than the air outside. So that actually accelerates the heat exhaustion process.
The heat soon began to affect the broadcast in a different way, as the equipment being used began to malfunction.
The whole phone is
I'm gooey, so I can't press buttons.
Same.
As part of the process, the hosts employed a technique that people often seem to think will help keep a trapped pet cool.
The windows are now open like about an inch.
It's a justification the SPCA's animal protection officer hears often, as she responds to calls of dogs being locked in cars.
A metaphor I'll often use is, if you're baking a chicken in the oven and you open that oven door a few inches, that chicken is still going to cook. Cracking windows is doing nothing, and maybe even just giving them a false sense of security so they're inside longer.
When the SPCA receives a call of a dog in a car, it is Officer Ringrose who answers, a job she does about 150 times each summer.
It's heart pounding, right? I mean, as soon as we get the call, it's a race against time for me to get there. I'll often have my front reception staff to try and call the business ahead of time while I'm en route to the scene to see if they can page the owner out. Those extra 10 to 20 minutes it takes me to get there could be the difference between life and death for this animal.
The first step for Officer Ringrose on arrival is to do a temperature check inside the vehicle and visually assess the animal inside to help determine the situation.
I try to generally give owners a little bit of time as long as the animal is safe to return, but that's when we'll start calling Astro Towing to let us in without breaking windows, try and get police on scene if possible for witnesses, protection, all that sort of thing.
Yeah, they're not doing well. Oh no, they're not comfortable.
It's a lot of work, it's time consuming. We have to respond to absolutely every call, whether there's air conditioning running or not. We don't know, and so it's consuming our resources, and that's 150 times every summer that an animal is put in a position where it could die.
That's not a hyperbolic statement, as it doesn't take long for the interior of a car to reach that oven-like state on even a moderately warm day.
The temperature within the truck when the guys started the radio show was about 36 degrees. That is very, very typical for this time of year within a vehicle. Our animal protection officers regularly measure temperatures of 40 degrees Celsius or higher, and in fact, at one point they have measured a vehicle to be 60 degrees Celsius inside.
Bud Hansen also says the fact that the number of these calls received hasn't changed much over the past several years may actually have a silver lining.
That may not necessarily mean that the incidents are going up. It's more that people are more aware that this is so dangerous to do, so they know who to call when they see something like this happening. So that is a good thing that we're able to respond to more and more cases.
Oh, look, a little dog.
Oh.
Don't come in here.
Yeah, save yourself.
The good humor for the hosts kept up for much of the afternoon, even as the physiological changes taking place became more apparent.
This is the weirdest and most uncomfortable feeling I've probably probably ever felt. And my fingers and my hands are like tingling now.
I don't want you to take this the wrong way,
Yeah.
but you are actually slimy. I've lost 13 pounds. And most of my childhood memories.
And after about 45 minutes in the car, they began to plan for their exit.
Are you doing all right, dear?
I mean, I feel like when we get out of here, we need to hug and congratulate on surviving, but I actually don't think I could force myself to touch anyone for the next 24 hours.
You ready to go? Okay.
Let's do it, peeps.
All right.
Oh, man.
They decided to forego the hug and celebrated instead with a simple toast. With water, of course.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, I am so impressed.
There was an ambulance on hand to assess the volunteers after the event and keep them safe during it. Dubois was also reassured by knowing they had an option that animals don't.
We knew the whole time, as bad as it was going to get, all we had to do was go like that, and we'd have somebody outside with water for us. Whereas animals, they can't talk, they don't have the ability to get out of vehicles that they've been locked into. They're in essence helpless.
For Hudson, the event took an emotional as well as a physical toll, as he couldn't help but imagine his own dog being in this situation.
I can't stop thinking about how scared it would be. I couldn't imagine being locked in that vehicle and not knowing if I'll ever get out. It's scary.
And while the radio personalities, SPCA officials, and Early's employees shared a laugh about the experience as it came to an end, there was no time for Officer Ringrose to commiserate. The afternoon was interrupted by the all-too-familiar ring of her cell phone with another animal in distress, this time in a parking lot on 8th Street.
Okay, and do you have a license plate?
If you see an animal in distress, don't hesitate to call the Saskatoon SPCA at 306-374-7387. In Saskatoon, I'm Simon Hiatt reporting.
Heading off to my next call. Yeah, I'm doing my thing.